Hello, hello. I'm Strider, your host here at Author in the Headlights, and I want to thank you for joining us today. And before we get too far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and you won't miss a single one of our episodes. Now, this morning, we have Mike Murphey with us. Mike, good morning.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you much. Now, I think before we get too far, I know that there's a couple things that go on. One, you've had a background in writing, but you had it from the news perspective, correct?
That's correct. I was for almost 30 years, I was a newspaper reporter or editor in the Southwest and then the Northwest.
Okay, so writing comes a little bit to you from your background, but how different is it from writing that to writing books as an author?
Well, I've written one nonfiction book, and that was very much like reporting. It was, research, information gathering, and interviewing, and all that sort of thing. My other seven books are all works of fiction. The discipline of writing fiction and certainly novel length fiction is, I think, or for me anyway, was very different. Everything comes from, begins with you, the self motivation, the ideas, all of that. But having written newspaper stuff and understanding the structure of that kind of writing was very valuable. Very valuable, I think.
Do you find, now you were an editor in that too, do you find having that editing background, does that connect in any way to book writing and editing?
Well, when I say I was an editor, I was never a copy editor. I
Mhm.
was a city editor, I was a managing editor, and then I was an editor.
Very
And
different things. Yeah.
yeah,
And that
and they
term
are.
editing has so many different meanings. And in fact, even as an having your book edited, there's five or six different ways of editing and different meaning different things. So yes, it can
Yeah.
be confusing, but
Only in the city editing position did I do a lot of hands-on stuff with copy. Um, but again, that worked out to be very valuable, and it showed me that whole experience of the value of editing and how much you how how dangerous it is to think you can self-edit.
I like that. Actually, we've spoken about that many times on this particular show because it is absolutely needed, necessary. Don't ever try to write your book and publish it without having it edited,
Oh yeah.
usually several times, not
Yes.
just one shot.
Yes, I go through. I have three very talented and reliable editors who have been just tremendously helpful in my learning the discipline of fiction and novel length work. And I use each of them on every book, and each of them has a skill at a different thing.
Yep. So good to hear all of you out there that are writers, just get your stuff edited. It'll only make it better. Now, I also know that you love baseball and you've been connected with all kinds of things. What's your baseball background? I know you also have a story about baseball or a couple of them, but baseball was your love.
I always uh, loved baseball, but I have played either amateur fast pitch softball or for the last 30 years amateur baseball, and it's a huge part of my life, and I liken it to, baseball teaches you many things, and it's very similar to writing in that it is a game of failure.
I haven't heard that way, but you know what? It is so true. Having played Little League, at least take one step at a time. And if you don't connect with the ball, you don't make it very
Yeah.
far.
Well, I have been very fortunate in my adult baseball aspect of my life. I for 17 years, well, I had a company and or was a member of a company, and we produced the Seattle Mariners and Oakland A's adult fantasy baseball camps for that time. And my partner was a wonderful guy named Dave Henderson, who was an all-star center fielder for the Oakland Athletics, also played for the Mariners. But that was a wonderful experience. Met a lot of people in it, and um, it's baseball is just a wonderful thing.
Hey,
You
hey,
get
you don't
so
have to
many.
explain.
I have
You
friendships from all over the world because of baseball, and very close friends that who I never would have known any other way.
So we'll get on to your writing things. Now, you did a couple different genres. You did a nonfiction. You did some fiction about or some stories about baseball, and but your latest greatest, maybe you could say it that way, because I'll tell you what, you're an award-winning author. I was making a list of all the awards you have, and there must be 10 or 12. You've got indie awards right and left. You've got readers awards right and left. That means you do a pretty good job.
Well, I hope so. That's one of the things about writing when you try to get into something different, like writing books. It's like any art, in that when you begin to pursue it, your sense of success tends to be what's reflected back from you from readers. And you get a great review and you think your book is wonderful, and you get a lousy review and you wonder why you even tried. It takes a while, I think, or it certainly did for me, to be convinced that my books are good, and that they deserve recognition. And that's one of the biggest challenges, of course, for any writer today, is to find your place on a bookshelf with 2 million books that are come out every year.
Yep,
And so,
absolutely.
and contests, the writing contest is one of the few ways that you can get that notoriety,
That's right.
and at least attract some attention.
Yes, and to gauge your own writing too. Is it
Yeah.
as good as I think it is? Or, is there something, well, you've done a pretty good job. Now, to go from baseball to science fiction, now that's an interesting jump, because your biggest one, well, let me see, is taking time, wasting time, killing time. Then you switch title to, well, you tell me, because I don't
Okay.
have a list sitting in front of me.
You mentioned the first three, and the fourth one was the Outlaw Gillis Curd, and then Quantum Consequence, and they're all under the title of my Physics, Lust, and Greed series.
There
Um,
you go. You caught me.
my three biggest influences, four biggest influences as a writer, are Mark Twain, of course, Douglas Adams, uh, Tom Robbins, and Christopher Moore. I like that kind of humor. Sometimes,
Satire and snark, right?
right?
That's fun reading to most people. Well, to many people. I don't know about most. I'm not going to pull out any percentages, but satire and snark really catch the attention and hold you, because you're not necessarily laughing, but you're enjoying the story as it goes. It's not just plodding along. It works for me. And you keep writing them, so you must enjoy it too.
It can be tough sometimes when the ideas aren't coming or it's not flowing. You uh, feel like you're ignoring your responsibilities when you can't sit down and do your however many words you're trying to do in a day. But I do, and it's not hard work at all to sit down and create a good story.
Not once you get into it.
No,
It may be hard to be able to sit down, to find the time to, and even maybe come up with that storyline. What am I doing? But once those words start flowing, the book writes itself.
Well, back in my newspaper career, what blocked me was I thought I had to know how it finished before I started.
That
And
is a method. That is one
I
method.
just, it's something I just couldn't do. And then when I turned 60 and had some time, I decided, well, I'm going to give this one more shot. And I'm just going to write a minimum of 500 words a day. I'm not going to worry if it's good, bad, or indifferent. I'm not going to worry where it fits in. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to try to sit down and tell a story and see where it goes. And that finally worked.
Do you have a specific number of words you try to aim for your books and your stories? I know every genre has kind of their own little
Yeah,
number, but
yeah. And the science fiction books, the time travel series, I try to be around 80 to 83,000 words. I, I think that's pretty ideal length for your readers. And, they come to expect that. And
and
it
that's
adds
a
to
big
that.
thing because your readers are the ones that buy it. And
Yeah,
if you're 130,000 words, some people go, gosh, I'll never get that. So they don't pick it up.
yeah.
However, there are authors that I talk to that do 150,000 words. That's a whole series in itself, but
Well,
yeah,
it is. Plus, it creates
the
big
printing costs
problems
become
trying to
that
make
too.
any money on it because you can't
Exactly.
charge enough for it to cover the cost of printing
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you're that big words.
Yep. Do you have something come up next? What's your next set? I know you just got the last one out not long ago, but are you working on something now?
Um, Actually, well, I have started a sixth book for the series, but it's kind of stuck. I have about a great 50 pages and then another 20 that's no good at all. But my focus right now is on trying to learn screenwriting.
Well, just knowing how to write screenplays helps you as just an author too,
Yes.
because you learn to write for the camera.
Mhm.
And if your book ever goes to camera, then it's already set up for it. But the human mind will track that same type of writing written as it will on a screen. So it does help. Not required, but every little trick helps. And I've found that helps too. Mike, it's been great. We're running out of time, but I learn every time I talk to somebody. I learn from you, and thank you so much. Also, all that you've done in your life. It's good. I'm glad we got to talk to you today. And I expect to see more awards coming from you just because, man, you're in the flow, I tell you.
Well, thanks very much for including me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And Mike Murphey and his books will also be available on Durham.com's bookstore. So you can check him out there and they'll link to wherever they're sold. Mike, thanks again. And I will probably see you at the Chanticleer Awards next year or you thereafter, because it looks like that's where you're headed again.
Well, writing conferences are important, and that's one that's important to me.
And me. Great friends there. Thank you so much. And until we meet again.
All right, thank you.
And for the rest of you, until I see you again on our next episode. Thanks. Sponsored by DurhamandPublishing.com.